everyone, it's Sammy from Sammy's Sweet Life, and today is a video. You can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about house things. This has been a major theme on our channel since moving to Austin. Basically, I've had lots of house dreams. We had a major disaster trying to build a house. We also made a mistake on buying a house and not really loving it, and now we are renting. So we are about halfway through with our lease in this house, and it was very clear early on in the first, I would say, 2 to 3 months that we definitely enjoy being homeowners more than renters. And it was just a very quick turnaround, and like a month into it, Johnny was already talking about finding a new house. And the funny thing with that is I had just, I posted the video about renting versus buying, and I was seeing the money side of things. Like, yes, renting can be really beneficial, and there are lots of reasons why it can be. You have the flexibility, you don't have any of the liability, it's not your property, so you can get the flexibility of moving whenever you want. In our particular case, it is cheaper to rent in certain areas that are closer to Johnny's work, which is, really invaluable. We can definitely save more money renting versus buying. In certain ways, it's just cheaper from month to month. You don't have to worry about upkeep, and you just know your payment. So I did the whole video about renting versus buying, and buying is not always the cheaper option. In fact, I've been binge watching all the Money Guy shows, and I link to them in my budget videos a lot because I'm really into that part of things right now. So I'll link to them also down below. But they did a video about, is renting or buying cheaper? And in this market right now, the market's just so skewed right now that it's like 14% cheaper to rent on average just in the United States. And that's not considering certain markets. Like Austin is its own little bubble of real estate, which is insane. And we've talked about this. When we went to build the house, we had problems with building the house because the prices are going up so quickly. And the builder took advantage of us because of the prices that they could get for the house versus what we had originally paid for the house. So that was where the major point of contention came up with the home build. They thought they could get way more money from the house instead of selling it to us and doing the right thing, doing the legal thing and abiding by our contract. They screwed us out of it because they could make more money. I think each year, the market up here goes up like 7 or 8%, which is huge. The average rate of house appreciation is like 3 to 4%. So it's like a way big booming real estate market here. So yeah, it's definitely cheaper to rent in our case. But early on, we figured out renting kind of sucks. It just does. And you pay for certain things to own the house. You pay more for stuff. You are on the hook for the house stuff, but you get that sense of, first of all, pride in ownership, I found has been a huge thing. And of course, yes, I've been pregnant. Yes, I've had no energy, but I just don't feel connected to this house at all. I don't really care if it's a little bit dirty. I don't really care if I'm keeping it up to my usual standards. And I think part of that, of course, is the pregnancy and the energy problem. But part of that's also, I don't give a flip about this house. It's not our house. And I think renters have that mindset in general for the most part. It's like, I don't care. I don't care what happens to the house. I don't care about how clean the house stays. I'm not going to be doing extra cleaning things on top of my normal everyday maintenance cleaning things because we're going to move out of this house. I'm just not invested in the house emotionally or mentally or anything. I'm just kind of checked out. I'll clean the toilets and clean the floors and clean what needs to be cleaned, but nothing else. I don't really care about the house. I don't care what happens to it. That's not to say I'm going to trash it or mistreat the house at all, but it's just kind of my mindset. It's not mine. I just don't have that feeling of, pride in ownership. And the light's always gonna go in and out. We got lots of clouds going on again today. So that part kind of sucks. Also, we've had some major issues with this house, and it's annoying to have to get things fixed. And yes, we do not have to pay for it. And thankfully, we have not had to pay a single cent extra than our, monthly rent payment to get these things fixed. But these are major things, major inconveniences that took longer than they should have taken because we're dealing with a rental versus if let's say if you own your house, your AC breaks down, you call the AC repair company, they come out straight away. Whereas in our case, the person who owns the house is not the person we contact. He has rented this out through a management company. So first of all, this is complicated because he's actually overseas. So the time zones don't line up very well, but also we go through the management company for anything. So let's say we're having a problem with the AC, which has been a problem. we call the management company. They have to get in touch with the person who owns the house and figure out what they're gonna do and contact whoever needs to come and look at the AC. And then they contact us to get everything scheduled and lined up. And then once the AC people come, they again talk to the management company who talks to the landlord, and then the landlord sends the message through the management company. It comes back to us, and it's kind of like a giant game of telephone. So in order to get even the AC looked at, it took a couple of days. In our certain circumstances, dealing with somebody who's overseas, so we're having that extra little wrench in the plan. It's not as quick as us just calling the AC person coming out as soon as they can. It's working around everybody as the middlemen in this situation. So that's been really, really annoying that we have to deal with that. And the trade-off obviously is we didn't have to pay $5,000 to get the AC replaced, but we did have to wait over a week to get it all said and done. And that's just kind of how it goes when you're renting a house. It's not speedy like it can be if you're the one in charge and handling it and doing it, and obviously having to pay for it, unfortunately. But we've had multiple cases, like it took them a week or so to fix the garage when the garage motor went out and we couldn't open the garage door. We also couldn't work the oven. The first time I used the oven, it malfunctioned. It took months for that oven to be replaced, and it's definitely not just their fault because they did send somebody out pretty quickly. Within a couple of days, they had somebody out to check on it. But that's another complication, is we are renting a really old house, which I'll get into the old house thing in just a minute. But just renting in general, you have the middlemen, and actually now that it's getting hotter, we started to try to use the sprinklers and they don't work. So they're sending somebody out to do some sprinkler whatever, and the sprinklers may have to even be replaced. It's been almost 5 months at this point, and we've had as many problems as months, pretty much. So it's just like every couple of weeks or so we have another problem with this house. But yeah, the renting part of it sucked, and we realized really early on, we're like, we really like just owning the house, you know? It sucks, it costs extra money. We would have been out so much money if we had purchased this house. We would be out like 10 grand at this point just in things that needed to be replaced. And it's just kind of worth it. Like at some point, the convenience factor and the sense of ownership factor is worth however much you have to pay for certain things. So early on, Johnny was already talking about buying a house, and when we originally started renting, I was thinking we're gonna rent for 3 years is what I thought, like at least 2 years, possibly 3 years. And he's like, as soon as this lease is up in a year, let's buy a house. He's already like, we're gonna house hunt. He wants to just get it done. And it's funny because I was the one that's like, we just started renting, what are you talking about? And the longer we've been here, the more on board I am with going back to the buying a house thing. This video is already like 10 minutes long. I'm gonna ramble a lot, and I've got lots of things to cover. I've taken lots of notes on my thoughts over this the last few days to make sure I'm putting out the video and being kind of as transparent as possible with this whole thing. But yeah, let's talk about the old house situation, and that'll come up later when we talk about what houses we are looking to buy. So this neighborhood is a very well-established neighborhood, like many of the neighborhoods actually in Austin proper, and these houses are like 30 years old and they break down, obviously. Like I've talked in the Facebook group for the neighborhood, and everybody's having their oven replaced. It just happens about the same time for everybody. If your house is 30 years old, your oven's about to die if it hasn't already been replaced. So lots of people in the neighborhood have had the same problem with their ovens. You know, we're just at that age of the house that SHIT is gonna happen. It's gonna go wrong, and you're just gonna have to be on the hook for it if you own one of the houses. So far, we have bought 2 homes. The one in Champaign was 3 years old when we bought it. The one here was 3 years old when we bought it. So we've always had new houses that basically nothing goes wrong, and some of the main stuff is still under warranty. So like if something were to happen to something major, at that point in time, it's still under warranty. So hopefully the warranty would cover, you know, major things if something malfunctioned. But when you're looking at buying a 30-year-old house, this is what you get. You know, what we're experiencing now is what you get, except if you buy it, you're on the hook for it and you have to pay for it versus just being inconvenienced by it. And so that made it really clear we don't want an old home. You know, we're just not do-it-yourself, fix-it-up type of people. And that's mostly what is this neighborhood. So I don't know that we're gonna stay in this neighborhood. They are building newer homes in this neighborhood and neighborhoods surrounding us. So it could be a situation where we can purchase a newer home as well. But most of the houses in this neighborhood are old. Most of the houses around here are old because they're already in the city and most of the city space is taken up. Not only that, they are very expensive. You know, we're looking at $500,000 houses and up. And that's a lot of money to go and buy an old money pit house. And yes, some of them have had roofs and things replaced. They'll say in the description when I'm looking at the houses, AC was replaced in whatever year it was replaced and things like that. So you can find some that have been updated. They're not 30 years old as far as like the kitchen upgrades, and they also have had major replacements. But those ones generally are way, way more expensive. And that's part of going into buying, is we know we're just going to spend $500,000 or above, most likely. There are like very few smaller pockets or sections where the houses are cheaper. And we've already been house hunting a little bit. So we already have seen some of the houses and certain neighborhoods and stuff. And Johnny hated them more than I did. And it's been like a flip situation where I'm like, okay, I've come down to earth. We don't have to build the fancy dream home. We don't have to have every single thing I want in the house. And when we go to look at these houses, I'm like, oh, well, it would be pretty if the kitchen had X, Y, and Z, like different countertops, or the cabinets got painted, because we're looking at older houses. And he is like, no, I don't want to have to fix anything. I don't want to have to buy a house that we have to renovate and all this stuff. And he's like, I just want a new house. And I keep coming back to the same thing. Like, that's, in my heart of hearts, we went to build that dream home because I wanted to plan everything. I wanted to get the exact granites I wanted and the cabinets and the colors of the flooring and all that stuff. That's why we built in the first place, we wanted that stuff. And now experiencing an older house, we really, really want a newer house because it's just been really crazy how many things have gone wrong. And it's just, it's just the age of the house. They're all going to be money pits at some point. And like even the new house, if we purchased a new house tomorrow, in 15 to 20 to 30 years, it's going to have the same kind of problems. So we're just looking at like, we just, we're a young family. We don't want to renovate with small kids. We don't want to do any of that kind of stuff ourselves. In this point in our time, we want it to be easy. We want it to be new. We don't want to have to worry about things. So that's really what we're looking at right now, is purchasing a newer home. So on the one hand, we would love, love, love to stay in this exact neighborhood. We really like it. We love the sense of community, but we don't want to purchase an old money pit. So it'd have to be the exact right house. And it may be an older house that's been redone, or it may be a newer one that we pay a whole lot more for, because the newer ones over here are just so rare that they're super expensive compared to just the regular like average price in here. And part of me is really conflicted about purchasing in the first place, because we're looking at, $500K and up, and that's a lot of money. Paying $500,000 for a house is sickening to me. Like, it just churns my stomach thinking about how much money that is. And whatever you pay for the house, you're going to pay interest on top of that. You're looking at it being way, way more than the $500K list price. Turns my stomach to think about how much money this is gonna be. And yes, it can fit into our budget, even with the crazy property taxes. And our last house, we comfortably afforded our last house, but thinking about how much we were sinking into it every month and how much the purchase price was, it was a lot. And it's kind of suffocating when you have a mortgage that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't know, I was freaking out about that house specifically because we didn't love it, which is something in my notes here. I'll talk more about that. It's just a lot of money to kind of wrap your mind around, I guess. So that's just something that I'm kind of processing right now, is thinking, wow, we're gonna spend so much money on this house. And like I said, Johnny is just absolutely extremely against doing any sort of renovations in the house. Like, he wants to be able to move in, it be exactly how we want it, and it's exactly how we're gonna keep it. He doesn't want to have to change things. Like, I will go into a house that we look at and I was like, wow, this is really pretty, but it needs a different countertop. Or we go into a house and the flooring needs to be replaced. Like, clearly the flooring's old and needs to be replaced, so we'd have to replace that. And he doesn't want to do any of that. Like, he's really super duper against doing anything. He wants the house, when we move in, he wants it to be just how we're gonna keep it and not have to do anything to it. And that takes more money, and that means it has to be newer. So basically I'm going into this like, whatever house we get, that's it. That's what we get. Whatever we buy, that's the house we get. And on the one hand, I totally agree with him. We're in that stage of life. Like, hello, we don't want to have to renovate with small kids. I totally get that. Part of that is if you're spending, you know, $500,000 on a house, it shouldn't need a thing. And that's part of the problem is in this older neighborhood, yeah, you're gonna spend $500,000, but you're gonna have to sink more money into getting the kitchen in the same decade. Like, it's just most of the houses in this neighborhood, they're gonna need the renovations. And we're just not interested in that. And he's specifically really against that. So it leads us to getting newer houses. And I agree with him on that front. Like if we're spending so much money on the house, that's the house we're getting. You know, we're not changing anything because we're already paying out the wazoo for the house itself. So that's kind of our mindset with that. And this leads me to something that really churns my stomach at this point, but I'm kind of like slowly digesting the idea. But if he's gonna veto any changes and we're not gonna do any renovations and whatever house we get is what we get, I kind of want to build again.